Hello, I'm Charles Kovess, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kovess Show. In this week's show, I explore your mistakes. Now that's a scary thought, isn't it? I explore the value of your mistakes and why they are precious assets. Every skill you currently have, you only developed through mistakes and failures. Every single skill. Don't hide from your mistakes. Use the lessons from those mistakes. They are precious, valuable resources. Changing times, incredibly fast changing times, require you and me to have new skills. We cannot possibly create those new skills without making mistakes. Your attitude to them, your philosophy about them, your principles that govern them are crucial to your future success. Stick around, lots more to come. This weekly show is founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Self-awareness plus passion equals success. Your self-awareness coupled with your passion will give you your success. And my favourite definition of success, as regular viewers and listeners would know, is that success is the progressive realisation of your worthy ideal. Since 1993, when I left my successful legal career to become Australasia's passion provocateur, to take a big risk in a career change, I have been provoking, inspiring, educating audiences as a speaker, coach, author, to discover and pursue their passions, to pursue life with passion, because that creates extraordinary results. I wish for you extraordinary results. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle, the unexamined life is not worth living. So I hope I'm provoking you as a provocateur to examine your life, to examine the basis on which you make your decisions. You can see I'm wearing my red jacket, red the colour of passion, to remind you that when you see red in your day-to-day life, it provokes you to think about your passion. Are you living your life with passion? Each week I explore one big idea because too many ideas confuse us. I then share with you simple practical resources to reinforce the value of this one idea. A book, a quote, a spiritual tip, a health tip, some humour, and a song, a new perspective on a song that when you listen to it, it will provoke new thoughts, new perspectives, new ideas around the issue that I'm sharing with you. This show is not politically correct. I have no desire to be politically correct. I have no desire to avoid offending any of you. And if you are offended, look inside you, because when you are offended, when anybody around you is offended, they are creating this offence. You actually can't offend anybody. They create it inside themselves. So if I say something that you find offensive, you're creating that offence. Look inside you. Where is that offence coming from? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have addictions, and there's some useful addictions, and my useful addiction is this yummy coffee that I have. Oh gosh. This show also subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. We are much more than what we can see. When you uncover the magic that is the spiritual life that you have, it unleashes all sorts of new possibilities. So, what's happened in the past week since my previous show? And by the way, this episode is episode number 60. Wow, 60 weeks I've been doing this. Julie has been a wonderful, skillful producer and editor of these shows, so I do thank her for all of this work for 60 episodes. But be assured, I'm not running out of material to talk about. I've got a whole list of stuff I want to talk to you about, some ideas I want to share with you. And I know that I've talked about mistakes before, which is the big idea this week, but we need reinforcement of crucial ideas. Anyway, back to the review of the week. Well, the big global worldwide topic was Hamas in the Gaza Strip firing rockets into Israel, and then Israel responding to it, and the nonsense that is written about it. I cannot believe that any sensible person thinks that Hamas firing hundreds and hundreds of rockets into Israel is a sensible thing to do. And when you study this area of the world, the games that are being played, there are some wonderful commentaries in the mainstream media, and there are some stupid commentaries in the mainstream media. But it's a relevant issue because the whole destabilizing of the Middle East, I wonder if that's related to the decisions of the Biden presidency, stupid decisions around energy sources. And suddenly, since Biden has become president, America has ceased to be independently able to produce its energy sources. Strange how suddenly dislocations happen in the Middle East, and the role that Iran is playing in pushing, goading, funding Hamas to do what it's doing as an attack on Israel to generate bad press about Israel. We also have the vaccine rollout. I get information from various sources around the world. The number of deaths and adverse events from these vaccines are significant. Don't fool yourself. Just because you're not reading them in the mainstream press doesn't mean they aren't there. Now, that doesn't mean that most people who are going to get this vaccine, will be significantly damaged, but I'm very concerned about what's in these vaccines, which are really not vaccines, mRNA drugs, mRNA gene therapy. And it's a whole new technology. And we had our Prime Minister even saying how wonderful this new technology is. Well, this was rushed out in less than a year, this new product. Normally would take 5 to 7 years of testing. I think it's hugely risky, and I've gone on record before and I go on record now. I will not take this drug. I will not take this injection because it's strictly not a vaccine. We've also had the Victorian budget here. Profligate spending, profligate waste, public servant wages go up, small to medium enterprises hammered by this Victorian government, but also happens nationally in Australia. This mantra, we're all in this together, bullshit, we're not. 2/3 of the population are doing really well. 1/3 are being hammered, and that's the small to medium enterprises and certain industries, including hospitality and the tourism industry. So, think about the price that we are paying through the fear of a virus. The other issue that's going to happen for me, where I have international business interests, is the whole question of passports. Get a passport that you've got a vaccine. I reject that idea. That is an outrageous idea. I urge you all to push back against it. Don't get sucked into it. Oh, I might as well have the vaccine so I can travel. No, the more people who push back against it, the less likely that we will ever have to have passports. And politicians who bring it in, I predict, will be punished by the voter when it's shown that this whole game plan around this coronavirus was mistaken. Now, I'll talk about the mistake of the politicians later, but that's my observation around this issue. Push back against the need for vaccine passports. I'm also seeing over the course of the last week from various sources that more and more people are seeing the nonsense around the wokeness movement, being woke, the cancel culture, and Black Lives Matter nonsense. They are socialist, Marxist wankers driving the Black Lives Matter agenda. And for them, any violence is permissible because in the name of social justice. It's further bullshit. Don't be sucked in by weasel words by these ideas. Oh, you don't know what those words mean because you haven't studied it. It is a scam. It is a cancel culture is a scam. In Australia, I've had someone say to me one day, oh, women are hard done by. There is, since for the last 30 years, there hasn't been any law provision that makes a distinction between a man and a woman in terms of what they pay. So don't be sucked in by lies. And so where that leads to is stick around with this show, because I provoke you to come up with new ways of looking at your life, or additional ways, so that you don't get inadvertently sucked in by people with a different agenda. My agenda for you is that you are a success, that you are living your life with passion in the way that you want to live it, without causing harm to other people. And that means physical harm. This nonsense around being offended, I've already made comment about that. I won't talk further. So, and of course, every day since my last episode, I have been continuing my exercise, riding my bike, a couple of swims. I urge you to do that as well. This is a magnificent machine. You must look after it, and do not rely on going to hospital or doctors to keep you healthy. Take a deep, deep interest in your health, in your exercise, in this machine. And if you are disciplined around looking after this machine, it will give you the freedom to move, to act, to respond. Now, before we get to this week's big idea, I invite you to visit our websites, covest.com, for our public programs, for speeches, for workshops for your teams, and charlescovest.com to learn about the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest. I'll be sending you invitations to my next masterclass about the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest. Consider reading my books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, both available on the websites. I have a wonderful gift for you of a manifesto on the Self-Awareness and Passion Quest, if you would like that, also available on the websites. So, today's big idea: mistakes. Do you know there's no skill that you have that you learnt without making mistakes, without failing? You learnt to walk only through making mistakes. You learnt to eat only through making mistakes. Look at your little grandchild, look at your children trying to put food in their mouths. Mistakes. You haven't even learned to breathe properly. Take a deep breath. When was the last time you consciously thought about how you breathe? You make mistakes all the time. Then think about your golf score if you play golf. How many golfers, professional golfers, the top 20 golfers in the world, constantly make mistakes? They're not hitting the ball where they want to hit it. They make a mistake. Swimming. World-class swimmers are constantly making mistakes about how they swim a race or the way that they stroke. I come from a swimming background. I've been swimming for over 50 years. And I've read stories about swimmers who are constantly trying to get their stroke to be better. And thereby, the current stroke that they're using is not correct, is not ideal. Basketball, Michael Jordan, famous for making mistakes in the shots that he's taken in important games, but also how many times he practiced to develop his skill to be able to put a ball into a hoop. Like, hello, your life is much more complicated than putting a ball into a hoop. Then think about the chief executives of major corporations, the successful chief executives. How many mistakes did they make? Then think of politicians who make mistakes in their career, who have the courage to admit that they made the mistake. That's the problem, not admitting the mistakes that we make. And that's why this week's big idea is that your mistakes are valuable, precious assets and resources that you can use for your whole life, provided that you own them, provided that you don't discard them, and provided that you don't fool yourself Then you say, I didn't make that mistake, somebody else made that mistake. And many times it's our self-esteem that stops us learning from these incredible assets, from these resources that we have. The world is changing so rapidly in so many ways, with so many technological leaps, that all of us have to keep developing our skills. If you are terrified of making mistakes, you will not learn quickly enough. And then you will give up in your progress. You say, this is all too difficult. I urge you not to do that. And as you're learning and growing from these demands that are put on us, believe it or not, you will be happy about that, because happiness requires progress for human beings. And so these mistakes that you're making, they become a measuring stick for the progress that you're making. So the way to benefit from these mistakes, to use these resources and your resources from the past, is certainly don't beat yourself up for them. I hate making mistakes, but I know I have to make them if I want to get better, and I want to get better for the rest of my life. So that's my game plan. So I have some key principles, and I have a number one. I'm going to share with you 3 principles that you can adopt and use, and I promise you they work. My principle is this: my mistakes are valuable learning experiences. My mistakes are valuable learning experiences. Now, even the word mistake, I could unpack that, because if you do something deliberately slack, that's not a mistake, that's just being deliberately slack, deliberately lazy. You say, I'm not going to do something, well, that's not a mistake. So part of the challenge here is to say, hey, what was actually a mistake? But I haven't got time to do that today. My principle: mistakes are valuable learning experiences. Another one that I taught my children early, you can adopt this: mistakes are good, or honest mistakes are good. The third is, I forgive all honest mistakes made by anyone, including myself. I think there's a wonderful quote, I didn't look up this source: to err is human, to forgive is divine. Well, tap into that divinity of you and forgive yourself and forgive others. That is one of the great challenges of Christianity, forgiving others. So, I get passionate about this issue of mistakes because, stupidly, most companies punish people for making honest mistakes. I'll talk about corporate mistakes in a later edition, but leaders who punish people for honest mistakes are basically stupid. Stupid, save for one issue. You can be punished for making a mistake if that honest mistake, you should be within your capability for which you have been retained in a particular organisation. So there's a base level, that if you're an accountant, you're expected to be able to count. And if you can't add up properly, then it's fair enough that, accountancy is not for you. But one of the issues in a corporate philosophy is, gosh, how many times do I forgive mistakes? And that's a whole topic in itself that we might talk about. Or I can run programs in your organisation or coach you one-on-one if you're struggling with this whole question through the self-awareness and passion quest, because this is such a crucial element to your future and the future of your organisation. So do not waste the wonderful assets that you have in your resource kit of the mistakes that you have made in the past and the lessons that are available to you from those mistakes. Now, it's joke time. I got a little bit serious there, but one of my favourite mistake jokes. And this joke not only is it relevant to this topic, but also relevant to people who are struggling financially. A woman answers the knock at her door and finds a destitute man. He wanted to earn money by doing odd jobs, so she asked, "Can you paint?" Yes, you said I'm a pretty good painter. Well, here's a gallon of green paint and a brush. Go behind the house and you'll see a porch that needs repainting. Be very careful. When you're done, I'll look it over and pay you what it's worth. It wasn't more than an hour before he knocked again. All finished, he reported with a smile. Did you do a good job, she asked. Sure did, lady. But there's one thing I'd like to point out to you. That's not a Porsche back there. That's a Mercedes. Love it. My song for the week. Actually, I'll give you my book of the week first. My book of the week is by Pat Williams, General Manager of the Orlando Magic, a basketball team. Go for the Magic. Short, excellent book about success. Go for the Magic. There is magic in your mistakes. And so, of course, the song is by a favourite of mine, Olivia Newton-John. I've worked with her husband, John Easterling. Olivia is a wonderful, wonderful lady who is willing to go out on the edge, particularly in alternative health remedies, and her journey with medicinal cannabis and herbal solutions. And her song is You Have to Believe. And remember the chorus? You have to believe we are magic. I won't sing this one because it's all too high. You have to believe we are magic. Nothing can stand in our way. You have to believe we are magic. Don't let your aim ever stray. And if all your hopes survive, your destiny will arrive. I'll bring all your dreams alive for you. You have to believe we are magic. And I happen to believe we are magic. And if you're a regular viewer, listener, you know I believe that. My quote for the week. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. I don't know who came up with that, but I learnt it from a wonderful businessman in the 1980s, Jim Roach. I was at his 80th birthday party. He led a business called Roach Brothers Mining, and his sons Ken and Dennis are friends. It was a great, great line. I've remembered it ever since. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. Your experience comes from your bad judgment, from your mistakes. My spiritual tip for you. Forgiveness is spiritual. Think of and take action to forgive someone who has made a mistake that you bear a grudge about. My health tip for you. I learnt this week from my friend Doug. He's had a sleep problem. He learnt, and I didn't know this, that if you have significant sleep problems, it inhibits your ability to lose weight, or what I call burn fat. If you have sleep problems, it's harder to burn fat. That was an interesting thought for you. So if you're having trouble burning fat, look at your sleep. Get more sleep. I've often talked about that as a crucial health element. So, I hope this week's big idea is useful for you. Please embrace it. It's a crucial element in your success. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe on the YouTube channel, or for the podcast, please share it amongst your family and friends and networks. If there are any other topics you'd like me to discuss or problems that you're having, please send me an email, charles@coves.com. I again invite you to visit our websites, coves.com for corporate programs and public programs, and charlescoves.com for the self-awareness and passion quest. That's it. Thanks again for being with us, for being with me in this episode. I wish you a week of passion, of fun, of challenge, and a heightened awareness around the value of your mistakes and how they are going to help you become a magical superstar into the future whilst pursuing your worthy ideal. Have a great week. See you next week. Bye.